Thank you for being here, County Clerk. We appreciate it. Look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for taking us in early. It's kind of nice to get this
Glad we can do early.
started. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners and Chair Parks and Budget Committee. I'm Sherry Hall, and I am the Clackamas County Clerk. This is Michael Newgard, who is our management analyst and my admin assistant, and he will be presenting most of the budget. We are presenting our 2021-2022 budget. The mission of the county clerk is to provide elections, records management, licensing and recording, property tax appeals, and passport services to the public, county departments and other government jurisdictions so they can participate in the electoral process, trust the integrity of the process, and promptly conduct their business in a welcoming environment. And I first want to just share a few things about elections because, you know, the pandemic started in March, and both, the three departments, some worked remotely right at the beginning. But we couldn't do that for long because all of our work is so hands-on. And with the start of the pandemic, we were coming into the primary election. We also had several of our temp workers who are older people that didn't want to work because of what was going on. And so Gary Schmidt very generously redeployed county staff from other departments to fill our spaces in elections. And I really appreciate that. We could not have done it at the pace we did without extra people. And with elections, we did several last year. We did the May 19th primary, which is not in this, budget year, but we did that one. Then we had an August 11th special election, which was City of Portland when Nick Fish needed to be replaced. We have 569 voters from City of Portland in Clackamas County. We billed that one to the City of Portland. And then we had the November 3rd general election. And then November 10th, we had a recall election for the City of Oregon City. March 9th, another special election with the City of Oregon City to fulfill the mayor's position. Both of those were billed completely to the City of Oregon City. But we do need money for that ahead of time because we have to pay our bills waiting for them to pay us. And then we just finished the May 18th special districts election. So we do have elections that creep into the calendar that are really not planned for. And sometimes we have to budget extra money for that. And Michael is going to do the PowerPoint.
Next slide, please. Let's start off with jumping into the 2020 major accomplishments. Sherry highlighted a lot of our great election accomplishments from the past year. But one of the neat things about our budget is that we're very self-sustaining in the clerk's office through our recording office. And recorded documents are at record highs this year due to a lot with the housing market. So every time a property record changes, you get a recorded document, and various different offices, including our recording department, gets a little slice of that recording document fee. And those fees have put in enough revenue that we're probably, by the time the actuals get computed, by the end of the fiscal, we'll probably be putting in somewhere close to $2 million back into the general fund. So that's one of the very great accomplishments that we can be proud of.
Can I just interject? One other interesting point with recording fees is the very low interest rates that have been in place for almost this whole year. Lots of refinancing. That also added to the recorded document numbers.
Another thing we wanted, should make sure that's on. Another thing we wanted to tout was that the recording office managed to stay open through most of the pandemic, serving customers that came into the counter. Some of it was by appointment, and then that was able to loosen up, but we've been able to take care of everybody who came in, which is very important. Elections, outside of the accomplishments that Sherry touted, one thing we were able to do this last year to help us efficiently process ballots was through a couple grants, one from the Secretary of State's office, another from the Center for Tech and Civic Life, that helped us upgrade a lot of our ballot processing equipment, tabulation equipment, things that would help us process more ballots with less actual people due to some of the restrictions we had on people we could have in rooms. So that helped process ballots during the presidential election in the fall. Records management has also had some great accomplishments. They've built their own dark room, which if you know anything about what recording and records management do, they process microfilm because that's the law's mandated way of preserving documents. We used to outsource a lot of that film to outside vendors, and then we're bringing that in-house, and we're able to do it in records management, which will save the county money and also help us process our own film. The last piece of one of the accomplishments we wanted to tout, the Board of Property Tax Appeals completed the 2020 and the 2021 property tax appeals in person and with the hybrid hearings over Zoom. That was something new we hadn't tried before, because typically to come to a hearing you have to be in person, and through working with a lot of other counties and coming up with a plan, we came up with a great way to serve the people who did not want to come in person but still wanted to appeal their property taxes.
And board members were also on Zoom.
So we'll move on to the next slide, please. Some of the performance Clackamas measures, we picked some of our very best ones. Elections open to observation. If you've ever visited our office, we have an observation deck, so anybody who wants to come and sign up and see ballots actually being processed by our election ballot workers, they can come see that. It's 100% open to the public. And we did have to do a sign-up process with the accommodations due to the amount of occupancy we could have in the back, but we had a very a good process for helping everybody cycle through there and see what they wanted to see.
And we had a record number in November of over 200 observers during the whole time we were working.
Some of the other ones, just making sure that we're doing our annual performance summaries. That was another highlight. Board of Property Tax Appeals, it's very important that when we have a decision from our hearing, that we respond back with the official documentation within 5 days is the goal we set for ourselves of getting that information back to the appellant. And 100% of the over 240 appeals were taken care of within 5 business days. And the last one, the percent of ballot correspondence sent to the voter within 2 business days, we're able to achieve 100% on that as well. Next slide, please. This is our program profiles. It kind of talks about the unique diversity of work that we do in the clerk's office. Just about everything we do except for one program is mandated either by the federal, state, or the county. The only one that's not mandated is we do process passports for citizens who'd like passport service. And it's been very busy this year because some of the passport offices in other places have closed, so we've been getting people coming from across other counties to use our service here. If you look through most of our budget for that, not a single part of it is from county general funds because of the revenue that we create through the recording office, and only a small part of our recording budget is restricted funds as mandated by law. Next slide, please. The biggest takeaways from our revenue and expenses, if you look at the revenue, Our revenue, again, mostly derives from our recording department, and that's recorded documents, typically from property records. And that would be the majority of it. We do also have revenue from marriage licenses, selling liquor licenses to rural areas and things like that. But the majority of it is from property records. Our largest expenses are from personnel, which is probably typical of most departments, and then materials and services. I would say the majority of our materials and services is most definitely elections. Those ballots, the ballot envelopes, the secrecy envelopes, all those things, they add up quite a bit on the several elections that we do a year. And then special payments on there. A lot of people probably have questions about that. That's specifically to cover our election ballot workers, and that's how finance has it coded on the pie chart here. But that's a payment we make. We have a temporary agency do our logistics and payroll for our election ballot workers, because it actually saves us money over having human resources do it. Next slide, please. The biggest takeaways from our summary and revenue expenses, if you look at our operating revenue, they're projected for next year is, we always conservatively project this, but we project it'll be up at least 16.6%. It's really tied to how well the housing market does, and that generates those recorded documents where we get a lot of those, a lot of the revenue from. As far as expenses go, we're not asking for much over the last year. We have the standard personnel increases. And I'd also like to highlight that our revenue less expenses in FY 19-20, our actuals came out that we put $1.9 million back into the general fund. And I believe after the actuals are done for this year, we'll have put $2 million back into the general fund after this fiscal year as well. Next slide, please. The department summary by fund, it shows we're requesting $4.6 million for the next year, and this constitutes an 11.2% increase over last year's budget, and a lot of that is personnel, and some of that's and a fluctuation in the materials and services area for elections. When we have to do a countywide elections, that's 300,000 ballots. And typically, we do get reimbursed for certain elections, but not all of them. So we have to budget accordingly to the elections coming up. Next slide, please. The significant policy and or financial issues that we might be looking at in the next fiscal year. We did budget more money for the potential of extra special elections next year over the normal amount of elections that we hold. And as Sherry mentioned earlier, the most important piece on that is we do get reimbursed by certain jurisdictions for holding their elections, but we have to pay that money up front to run the election. So that's one key piece there. And then one caveat I always throw into the budget committee every single year is the potential for changes in the housing market to affect our revenue and recording. We don't see it changing anytime soon with the supply of housing and the rate of development of new housing, but that's something that we always monitor closely because it could change our revenue quickly.
It's a crystal ball.
Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball to predict it. That'd be nice. And then next slide. And that we'll take questions at this point.
Thank you very much. We have Chair Smith, ready?
Thank you for maintaining the integrity of our elections process in Clackamas County. I know it's a hot topic across America now, and so far we have maintained our honesty and ballot integrity, and thank you very much for that. Also, thank you for returning $2 million to the general fund. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Keep the interest rates low and the housing market moving,
Yeah.
if it's up to you.
Yeah, and we may not always be able to do that, but we're going to keep this cash cow going as long as we can. Thank you very much, Sherry.
Just another little piece with recording. The law says recording must be open 5 days a week, 6 hours a day. And we have some vacancies. We have one new recruit starting next week, but recruiting is hard too because we just don't get people that have any experience that matches anything we do in there. And so we have cut our hours. The law says 6 hours a day, so we are coming in at 8, but opening to the public at 9 to noon, and then 1 to 4. So there's an hour at each end of the day.
So are you saying you're having trouble finding people to fill the qualifications for the job you
Right.
posted?
Yes.
I
I
don't
think
think we're
that's
the only one, though.
commonplace. I just want to say, it's just not for your office.
Right.
I think it's commonplace across the spectrum and we gear up for all this housing initiatives that are coming forward. It's very personnel heavy. And I think H3S will be experiencing possibly the same difficulty in recruiting people to do housing because we're in competition with Washington and Multnomah County.
Right.
All seeking the same type of personnel. And it's going to be very interesting, and maybe we're going to have to hire people who don't meet the basic initial qualifications. We may have to train them.
Right, spend more time training, you're
Right.
right.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Feely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would certainly echo what Chair Smith said about the integrity of Clackamas County elections, but just to put that in the form of a question to you, are there any areas of concern about our election processes that trouble you or that you think are, rife for abuse?
Well, there's some legislation going on that could change some of the rules. And we'll all just have to learn how to deal with it.
Can you
And
just-
I'm sure one of them that you know about is the postmark rather than in the office by 8 o'clock election night. And the clerks are neutral, but are expecting it to pass, which means at this time, we get ballots back and the signature doesn't match or the voter forgot to sign it. And we had about 1,000 of those for this May election. We have now about 850 that need to still cure that, and they have until Tuesday at 5 o'clock. But if postmark passes, that will be put out another week. And at this time, we certify the election results 20 days after the election, which will be June 7th. But with postmark, it would push that out another week. So there's going to be some other changes.
So that's a process problem, but not necessarily a integrity issue, right?
No, it's not integrity,
Yeah.
except the decision-making could be something that others
Sure, no, I
question.
understand that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other lights on nor cards raised, so thank you very much for your presentation, and we appreciate that you were able to come in early also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It was nice.